People had said that metal guitar players were no comparison to the classical violinists in the past, and I said, I disagree. And somebody challenged me, so I went down and played with the San Diego Symphony, did some Vivaldi, some Bach, and some Wagner. And I told them when I left, do not use my music. And of course they used it. Their biggest song, Enter Sandman, go look up the band Excel right now. Look up their song. Pretty similar.
In 1991, Megadeth joined the biggest metal tour ever. But Dave Mustaine nearly destroyed it with his demands. He wanted headliner treatment even when Slayer drew bigger crowds. He fought over who played last, who got more stage time, even who got more merchandise space. Sound checks became battles, but his strangest demands happened backstage. Crew members whispered about rituals and requirements that went beyond normal rock star behavior. Some demands were so bizarre that venues threatened to cancel shows. The truth about what Dave really wanted backstage has been hidden for decades. Dave Mustaine was born on September 13, 1961, in La Mesa, California. His father, John Mustaine, once had a good job at Bank of America. He later worked for NCR Corporation, but everything changed when the company moved from mechanical to electrical systems. John lost his job, and their stable life quickly fell apart. He started working in bars, running cash registers. The sharp fall from bank manager to bar worker crushed him. He began drinking heavily, and things at home got worse. Dave was the youngest child. His sisters Michelle, Suzanne, and Debbie were much older. He felt more like a stranger than a brother. As the drinking grew worse, the family lost what little money they had left. The pain of poverty and his father's anger was what Dave knew growing up. By 1965, when Dave was just 4, the violence became unbearable. His mother, Emily, filed for divorce to protect her children. But that didn't stop the danger. John kept finding them. Whenever he discovered where they lived, Emily would pack up the family and flee. They moved from one town to the next, living like they were hiding from something terrible. Dave remembered it clearly. He once said, "That would change you. It makes you not trust people." Life felt like a trap, always waiting for the next escape. They ended up in Costa Mesa, living with Dave's aunt, a strict Jehovah's Witness. Emily also became one. From that moment, Dave's life was locked down. He wasn't allowed to celebrate holidays or birthdays. At school, he stood silent during the pledge, while others looked at him like he was strange. He couldn't be friends with kids who weren't from the church. But the church kids lived far away, and none were his age. Dave said later, "My life was ruined from that point onwards until I moved out." He felt like he was always on the outside, looking in. Even worse, Dave had already seen things no child should. By age 7, he had watched his father hit his mother and sisters. The violence didn't stop after they ran. They started using fake names to stay hidden. At home, male relatives who were police officers were allowed to beat Dave with belts. Sometimes they even used thick gun belts. Dave was left bruised and afraid, not just of his father, but of the people who were supposed to protect him. The fear dug deep inside him, and it never really went away. Still a child, Dave started stealing bikes. He needed the money. He sold the bikes to help his family. But soon he began selling marijuana too. What started as stealing became dealing. And before long, he was using the drugs himself. All of this while he was still in elementary school. He was trying to survive, trying to feel in control in a life that never gave him any. This was the beginning of a long battle with drugs and anger that would follow him for years. At just 15 years old, everything exploded. He got into a fight with a teacher and dropped out of high school. He was already using hard drugs like LSD and cocaine. His life had broken apart in so many ways. His father was gone. His mother was doing her best, but religion had closed off the world around him. Dave didn't feel like he belonged anywhere. He was lost, angry, and already heading toward destruction. But he also had music, and that was the one thing that made sense. In 1978, when he was just 17, Dave formed his first real band. They called it Panic. He played guitar, and the group felt like the start of something big. But after just their second show, disaster struck. The band's drummer and their sound guy died in a car crash. Then another member, Tom Queck, died in a separate crash. Dave couldn't believe what was happening. He began to question if he was meant to make music at all. But he didn't stop. Some songs from Panic would later be reborn in Megadeth. Those years were dark. Dave lived in poverty in Huntington Beach. He dealt drugs just to survive. But even then, he found ways to keep learning guitar. He would trade weed for guitar lessons. He had this burning drive to get better. He played a sharp, wild-looking BC Rich Bitch guitar that matched his intense style. While drugs pulled him down, music pulled him up. The skills he gained during those rough times would one day make him a metal legend. Something even stranger happened during that time. His own sister introduced him to black magic. It wasn't just something he read about. He actually practiced spells and curses. He said later that he truly believed those spells ruined his life. For years, he refused to play songs like The Conjuring because he believed they still carried dark power. These moments haunted him deeply, and they shaped the dark edge in his music. By 1980, Dave was 19 and ready to chase music full-time. He moved to Hollywood and dived into the underground metal scene. He lived in run-down apartments and played at legendary clubs like the Whiskey A Go-Go. He was determined to make it, and soon, all that effort paid off. In 1981, he saw an ad in a newspaper from a drummer named Lars Ulrich. Metallica was looking for a lead guitarist. Dave didn't audition. He just showed up, started tuning his guitar, and told them they'd better decide fast. They gave him the job, just like that. He was 20 years old and had just quit Panic to join this brand new band. It felt like the start of everything. During rehearsals, Dave brought wild energy. He helped write key tracks like The Mechanics and Jump in the Fire. His guitar work was loud and fast. It was the backbone of what would become Metallica's first album. But behind the scenes, the problems started piling up. Dave drank too much. He drank more than anyone in the band. When he got drunk, he wasn't just loud. He got violent. One time, he poured beer all over a bandmate's gear just to prove a point. He once said, "If someone refuted me, that was war, baby." The band couldn't take much more of his outbursts. By 1982, things got even worse on tour. Dave missed rehearsals. He got into fights. One night, he nearly crashed the band's van while driving drunk. He even got into a fight with James Hetfield over a dog. The chaos was non-stop. Everyone was drinking, but Dave was on another level. He was dangerous to be around. Then came the day everything ended. On April 11, 1983, at 9 in the morning, Dave was woken up in a New York hotel. Lars, James, and Cliff Burton told him he was out of the band. They had already replaced him with Kirk Hammett 10 days earlier. Dave was stunned. He thought things were fine. When he asked about flying home, they gave him a Greyhound bus ticket instead. No goodbye, no second chance. Just a lonely 4-day ride back to California. The reason wasn't just the drinking. It was what he became after drinking. Dave was violent. He admitted it later. He didn't just party. He exploded. He said, "I would drink and have fun until someone would refute something I had said. And then that was war, baby." While others got loud or silly, Dave got dangerous. That morning, the band was done with it. so they put him on a Greyhound bus and sent him back to Los Angeles alone. On that long, painful ride, Dave found a political flyer from Senator Alan Cranston. One line hit him like a punch. "The arsenal of Megadeth can't be rid, no matter what the peace treaties come to." That line gave him a name, a purpose. He wasn't going to disappear. He was going to come back louder and harder, as Megadeth. In early 1985, Megadeth got their first shot. Combat Records gave them $8,000 to make their debut album. But Dave and his band were still deep in chaos. They blew half the money, $4,000, on drugs, alcohol, and food before they even recorded a note. With the budget already falling apart, they had to fire their producer and do everything themselves. What they ended up with was rough and raw, but that sound, that sharp edge, helped define early thrash metal. That album, Killing Is My Business, and Business Is Good, came out on June 12, 1985. It even featured Mechanics, a track Dave had originally written while in Metallica. The whole album screamed one message: he wasn't done yet. But behind all that noise was something darker. In 1984, while building Megadeth, Dave nearly died from a heroin overdose. He blacked out for days, and yet, somehow, in the middle of all that, he kept writing and recording. It was like he couldn't stop. The drugs had him, but so did the music. He wouldn't get clean for another 11 years. From 1984 to 1995, Dave was addicted, and still building a legacy. Every early Megadeth song, every demo, every album was born while he was fighting death from the inside. Between 1983 and 1985, during Megadeth's first tours, Dave's behavior became even more unpredictable. He was using heroin and cocaine. On stage, he would smash guitars, scream about Metallica, and lose control in front of stunned fans. It wasn't an act. These were real breakdowns happening live. The chaos made people watch, and the fans called him the angry underdog of thrash. Band members came and went. No one could keep up with the storm that was Dave Mustaine. Songs like Set the World Afire were his way of hitting back at Metallica. Rage turned into music. In September 1986, everything changed. Capitol Records signed Megadeth and released Peace Cells. But who's buying? On September 19th, that album's title track didn't just become a hit. It became the voice of a generation. MTV even used its bass line for their news intro, which brought Megadeth into millions of homes. The album reached number 76 on the Billboard 200 and eventually sold over 600,000 copies in the US. But while the band was rising, Dave was still falling. Director Penelope Spheris said he was so out of it during music video shoots that he couldn't sing and play at the same time. Even while opening for legends like Motorhead and Iron Maiden, his addiction kept dragging him closer to disaster. Then came So Far, So Good. So What? In 1988. It featured one of Dave's most emotional songs ever, In My Darkest Hour. Written after Cliff Burton, his old bandmate from Metallica, died in a tragic bus crash. The album sold over 380,000 copies. But the tour that followed fell apart fast. Dave's drug problems were worse than ever. Gigs were canceled. He fired drummer Chuck Baylor and guitarist Jeff Young in 1989. The band was barely holding together. Fans were angry. Promoters were frustrated. And Dave was crumbling. This was the lowest point yet. Then, in March 1989, he crashed. Police arrested him for impaired driving. He had at least 7 drugs in his system: heroin, cocaine, alcohol, Valium, and more. It wasn't just another night gone wrong. It was a full-stop moment. That arrest scared Dave enough to accept his first rehab. It would be the first of 15 over his life. He was forced to fire everyone around him and start over, while still sick from withdrawal. But somehow, through that darkness, he was about to create a masterpiece. In September 1990, Megadeth released Rust in Peace. It was everything Dave had dreamed of: tight, technical, powerful. The album sold over 1 million copies in the US and earned a Grammy nomination. It reached number 23 on the Billboard 200 and even climbed to number 8 in the UK. Holy Wars, The Punishment Due, and Tornado of Souls weren't just songs, they were proof that thrash metal could be smart, precise, and massive. Marty Friedman's solo in Tornado of Souls is still called one of the greatest ever recorded. Rolling Stone later named Rust in Peace the 19th greatest metal album of all time. Dave had done it. He had survived and changed the genre. From late 1990 into 1991, Megadeth joined the Clash of the Titans tour with Slayer, Anthrax, and Testament. It was huge. They played arenas like Madison Square Garden and the San Diego Sports Arena. But backstage, it wasn't smooth. Dave's ego clashed with everyone. Fights broke out over who played last, who got the most stage time, and even who got more room for merch. Dave wanted headliner treatment, even when Slayer was pulling bigger crowds. He fought over sound checks and set lists. Despite all that tension, the tour was a giant success. Thrash metal had arrived on the main stage. But Dave's reputation as hard to work with would follow him for years. That was only the beginning. His battle with addiction wasn't over. In 1993, things went beyond scary. Dave overdosed so badly that he literally died. Clinically dead. No pulse. No breath. Doctors brought him back, but he still couldn't let go of the drugs. He once said, "If you wanted to be great, you had to shoot heroin," and that mindset nearly killed him more than once. By the end of the decade, he had gone to rehab 15 different times. 15. And yet, through all of it, in July 1992, Megadeth released Countdown to Extinction. It debuted at number 2, selling 128,000 copies in the first week. Only Billy Ray Cyrus kept them from number 1. 2 years later, it went double platinum. But behind that success, tensions were boiling. Marty Friedman had been a key part of Megadeth since 1990, but by 1999, Dave fired him. It wasn't just about the music anymore. Dave wanted total control, even if it meant tearing the band apart. While the world saw Megadeth climbing the charts, Dave's personal life was crumbling. He married Pamela Castleberry in April 1991. Their son, Justice, was born in February 1992. They lived in a $1.2 million house with vineyards and a studio in the pool house. But none of it could fix what was broken inside him. By 2006, he filed for divorce after 15 years of marriage. His addiction had wrecked his family just as badly as it had wrecked the band. In 1994, Euthanasia brought more success. The tour was huge. They had bands like Korn and Fear Factory opening for them. Europe loved them. But Dave was falling again. He relapsed during the tour. Sometimes he forgot lyrics mid-performance. Sometimes he acted aggressive or confused on stage. It all came to a head in 1995 when they played Monsters of Rock with Ozzy Osbourne and Alice Cooper. On the surface, they were rock gods. But deep down, everyone close to Dave knew something was very wrong. By 1997, things got worse with cryptic writings. Megadeth tried to go radio-friendly, and fans hated it. The album didn't sound like Megadeth anymore. It sounded like someone trying to get on the charts. Hardcore fans accused Dave of selling out. On top of that, band members were fighting over royalties. Legal battles exploded. His voice had even changed. It didn't fit the music anymore. That album was a low point, and it would take years to come back from it. Then came 2002, and everything stopped. While in a Texas rehab center, Dave passed out in a chair. His arm was hanging over the backrest, and it stayed there for hours. When he woke up, his left arm was numb. The nerves were crushed. Doctors told him he'd probably never play guitar again. For a man whose whole life was music, that was the end. Or so it seemed. But Dave didn't give up. He left rehab and went to Arizona, where a doctor started aggressive therapy. For 13 months, he fought to get his arm back. Slowly, painfully. It worked. That same year, something else changed. Dave found God. He looked up at a cross and said, "What have I got to lose?" That moment turned him into a born-again Christian. He even refused to tour with bands he thought were satanic. His faith gave him a kind of peace he hadn't known before. In April 2002, Dave officially ended Megadeth. The band was done. But what he didn't say publicly was that he was glad. The band had become toxic. He couldn't stand being around them. Everyone had their own problems. The injury gave him a way out. But 2 years later, something unexpected happened. His arm had healed. He started working on a solo album, but it felt like Megadeth. So in 2004, the band came back to life. But not everyone was invited back. David Ellefson, his longtime friend and bassist, wasn't part of it. That same year, Ellefson filed a lawsuit for $18.5 million. He said Dave cheated him out of money and ownership. The fight got ugly fast. Ellefson accused Dave of being a manipulative addict. Dave fired back online, calling it extortion. A judge threw the whole case out in 2005 and even made Ellefson pay the court fees. Dave said Ellefson got his ass handed to him in public. And just like that, one of rock's longest friendships was gone. In 2007, Dave Mustaine made a loud comeback with an album called United Abominations. It wasn't just a return to thrash metal. It hit number 8 on the Billboard 200, the highest Megadeth had reached since 1994. Guitar World called it the best metal album of the year. But the lyrics caused a storm. Mustaine had strong political views, and he didn't hide them. The album talked about the Iraq War and took aim at President Bush. Fans were shocked, especially when Mustaine later supported Rick Santorum, a Republican, in 2012. Many of Megadeth's fans leaned left, and this move divided them. But Mustaine didn't care. He used heavy metal to speak his mind, even if it cost him fans. Most of the band was new, but the music felt fresh and fierce, like a rebirth. Then in 2010, something happened that nobody thought they'd see. The Big Four of thrash stood on the same stage in Poland, in front of 88,000 screaming fans. Mustaine sat with Lars Ulrich, the same man who had fired him from Metallica in 1983. They had dinner, they talked, and Mustaine called it one of the best days of his life. His faith had softened him since he became a Christian in 2002, but the peace didn't last. In later interviews, he kept hinting that he deserved more credit for Metallica's success. He said fans were missing out on Megadeth, and that he was the only one who had played in both bands. It felt like the old pain was still there, just under the surface. In 2012, Mustaine surprised people again. He walked up to a winery in San Diego and asked to make his own wine. He called it Symphony Interrupted, and the first 59 cases sold out in less than 72 hours at $40 each. He and his wife Pam were deeply involved. They didn't just lend their name. They helped blend and bottle it. That same year, his guitar business exploded too. In 2021, he signed a huge deal with Gibson that included Epiphone and Kramer guitars. It was more than just branding. He joined Gibson's Artist Alliance and called it a dream come true. By now, Mustaine was no longer just a metal frontman. He was building a real empire with smart business moves outside of music. For years, he had chased the Grammy, but never won. Between the 1990s and 2010s, Megadeth got 12 Grammy nominations and lost every time. Then, in 2017, it finally happened. Their album, Dystopia, won Best Metal Performance. But the moment was bittersweet. As Mustaine walked to the stage, the house band played Metallica's Master of Puppets. He didn't notice at first, but later he watched the clip and called it the worst version he'd ever heard. That album wasn't just music, it was his comeback. He had suffered nerve damage in his arm in the early 2000s that almost ended his career. But he fought through it. The Grammy wasn't just a trophy, it was proof that he had survived and thrived. Then came something even harder. In June 2019, at the age of 58, Mustaine found out he had throat cancer. Megadeth canceled their tour. He went through 51 radiation treatments and 9 rounds of chemotherapy. He didn't hide it from fans. He told them plainly, "I have cancer." And instead of breaking down, he got angry. He prayed, thought about his fans, and kept pushing. By October 16, 2019, doctors told him he was 100% cancer-free. Just 3 months later, in January 2020, he stood on stage again in Finland. After everything, addiction, injuries, and now cancer, he was still here, still performing. Fans saw not just a musician, but a survivor. His personal life had seen storms too. He married Pamela in 1991, and they had 2 children, Justus in 1992 and Electra in 1998. But his struggles with drugs affected his family deeply. In 2002, after a kidney stone surgery, he relapsed due to the pain medication. He checked himself into rehab in Texas. Around that time, his faith grew stronger, and he became a Christian. That shift helped bring some peace to his family life. By 2014, they were living together in Nashville, and somehow, after everything, the marriage lasted. But the Metallica wounds never fully healed. He had been fired from the band in 1983, and that pain stayed with him for decades. In 2004, when Metallica filmed their documentary, Some Kind of Monster, Mustaine agreed to be interviewed. He spent 3 hours talking with Lars Ulrich, but only 5 minutes of that made it into the movie. Mustaine was furious. He said the best parts were cut out, especially the moment Lars walked off crying. Mustaine felt betrayed. He had signed papers that promised he could approve the final footage, but Metallica ignored his request. It took until 2011 before they finally shared a stage again. Even then, the past still lingered. Long before the fame, Mustaine's life was shaped by pain. He was born in September 1961 in La Mesa, California. His father was violent and alcoholic. His parents divorced when he was young, but the abuse didn't stop. His mother kept moving them to escape, and for a while, they lived with his aunt, a strict Jehovah's Witness. Mustaine has said plainly, "My life was ruined from that point onwards." In 2010, he revealed in his book that a neighbor had sexually abused him when he was a child. These dark memories shaped the fire inside him and became the emotional fuel for Megadeth's angry music. Mustaine's political views added even more heat. In 2012, during a concert in Singapore, he told the crowd that President Obama had staged mass shootings to push gun control. He pointed to the Aurora movie theater shooting and the Sikh temple attack, claiming they were setups. It caused outrage. Fellow musicians slammed him. James Hetfield called him a big mouth. Nikki Sixx called him worse. Even his own fans didn't know what to think. Later, Mustaine said he had learned from the backlash, but the damage was already done. Then, in August 2025, something huge happened. Megadeth announced they were retiring. After more than 40 years, they were done. A final album was planned, along with a farewell tour in 2026. Mustaine, now 61, said he wanted to leave while he was still on top. The band's 2022 album, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead, had reached number 3 on Billboard and told the story of his cancer fight. It felt like a full-circle moment, but Mustaine being Mustaine, he still demanded perfection. His tours had detailed lighting rules, volume limits, and specific gear setups down to the inch. Nothing was left to chance. He also kept pushing himself physically. In October 2022, at 61 years old, he earned his brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It took years of training. He had already trained in 9 different fighting styles, including judo, karate, Muay Thai, and boxing. His instructors included legends like Benny the Jet Urquidez. Even after cancer, Mustaine showed no signs of slowing down, and he didn't forget the fans. In November 2022, he sold 150 pieces of music equipment he had used over 4 decades. Some were guitars he played on stage. Some were prototypes that had never been seen. The money wasn't the point. He said, "I owe so much to my fans. I'd rather give it back to them than let it sit and collect dust." This gesture showed a softer side, one that had grown through pain, loss, and survival.